Hi everyone, my name is Dr. Richard Murray. I work for McLaren Automotive and this is my talk for Careers Talk Friday. I'm sorry if this feels a bit strange and is a bit clunky, but I've never done a recorded presentation before, so I hope it's all okay. So this is an overview of my presentation. I will take you through who I am and where I'm from, my journey through university and engineering, and ultimately how I ended up as an engineer at McLaren. So as I said, my name is Richard. I was born in a small town called Sandbach in Cheshire in the northwest. My main hobby is actually playing rugby. It's not cars, but I've never told McLaren that. I've had a question about things I wanted to be growing up, and I know there's probably lots of you today who know exactly what you want to do and how you want your career to look, and that's amazing. There's probably a lot of you as well who have absolutely no idea what you want to do, and I was definitely one of those people growing up. It makes it really hard to choose what to do, but some of the things I wanted to do are on the screen there. So I wanted to be an astronaut, archaeologist, forensic scientist, professional rugby player, or sports psychologist, and ultimately I've ended up nowhere near any of those. So my secondary education was at Sandbach Sports School. It's an independent school in Cheshire. I stayed after my GCSEs for sixth form and I did my A-levels in psychology, PE and biology. I actually originally started with PE, psychology, German and chemistry. I'd swapped German and biology very early on and actually failed AS chemistry, which is why I didn't continue with that. Now, I'm not saying that to scare anyone, more to show that sometimes we fail things in life and things don't go to plan, but it all turns out okay in the end. I still got where I am today with some hurdles along the way. When it came to applying for uni, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do and I ended up applying for sports science. Come results day, I actually didn't again get what I needed for my first choice, unfortunately. Ultimately, I went through clearing and got an offer to study sports science and materials technology at the University of Birmingham. It was the best thing that could have ever happened to me. I'd never really heard of materials science, but it brings together a lot of different areas such as chemistry, ironically, physics and maths. If we didn't have materials science, our understanding of the world would be extremely different and engineering would be a lot harder. So for university, I went to University of Birmingham and I did an undergrad, master's and a PhD. So I ended up being at university for 9 years. I wasn't a really bad student. I was just given opportunities to continue my education and keep living the student life, of course. I did my undergraduate degree and on results day, I was lucky enough to be offered a master's fully funded from the same department that I'd worked in. I saw it as an excellent opportunity to add a bit of a specialism in composites, which I'd been interested in and we'd only touched on in my undergrad, and also to continue with the student life, as I said. At the end of that, I was lucky enough to be offered a PhD with the Ministry of Defence. I couldn't say no to that, working on a project that could potentially be used in the future defence strategies. It was incredibly difficult, but extremely rewarding, and looking back, I wouldn't change it. But at the time, I definitely questioned what I was doing. So at the end of my PhD, it was time for me to get my first job, and my first job was awesome. I worked in defence and I got to design, make and test body armour for a range of customers from all over the world. We were lucky enough at this business to have our own ballistic range where we shot the test plates and got to analyse what happened. Unfortunately, it was extremely safe, and when I say shoot the plates, I mean I pushed a button in a locked room, heard a bang, and had to wait for about a minute for an automatic lock to let me back in so I could actually see what had happened. Sometimes the prototypes didn't work, and that was sometimes more interesting, although I'm glad I wasn't wearing any of them at the time. Again, here I got to work closely with the Ministry of Defence and also some international businesses such as General Dynamics. One thing I want to mention here is that I didn't actually apply directly for this job. I was struggling to find something I really wanted to do or find a graduate scheme that interested me, and I came across this company online after some searching. I actually emailed them from their customer contact part of the website explaining I was looking for a role and I was really interested. Fortunately, they actually got back to me quite quickly. I had a phone interview, a face-to-face interview, which was mainly a tour of the building, and then they offered me a job. I'm not trying to blow my own trumpet here. The point I want to make is that sometimes all it takes is asking a question, and the worst that they can say is no. The right role and career is out there for everyone, and sometimes you just need to take a leap of faith. After 2 years at MP Aerospace, I had another unusual experience for such early on in my career. Unfortunately, I got made redundant along with 18 other people. It was definitely a shock and something that was difficult to navigate, but led to another great job for me. I ended up working for a company called the Warwick Manufacturing Group, or WMG. These guys do industrial scale research for big automotive companies such as Jaguar Land Rover and Aston Martin, so it was my first foray into the automotive world. It was the perfect combination for me of research and industry. It was a step away from the pure academia and the university side of things that I'd been used to, but it allowed me to use all of my research skills to their full advantage. It also gave me great exposure to leading edge technology and the opportunity to work closely with the automotive businesses. WMG is focused on the automotive industry, as I said, with groups researching battery technologies, self-driving cars and alternative materials, and that's ultimately what the group I was in was with these alternative materials, looking at making components lighter that are currently made in aluminium or steel and swapping them for composite materials. One project from WMG that was run with Ford actually won an international award for automotive innovation. So I apologise, I've had to turn my camera off so you can see this full slide. So after a year, I had to actually leave WMG due to moving too far away. And that is what led me to McLaren. It's based in Woking in Surrey, and it's based at the McLaren Technology Centre, which is where all the engineering and development happens, and the McLaren Production Centre, where the cars are actually built. So the McLaren Technology Centre is the circular building on the right, and the Production Centre is a rectangular building on the left. So McLaren, as it's known, is actually made up of 3 different businesses: racing, automotive and applied. Ultimately, a lot of people, when they think of McLaren, immediately think of the racing and the F1, which is definitely the most famous part, and it's what the brand was all started on. Eventually, out of this came automotive. The first road car McLaren ever made was the McLaren F1. It was unique at the time with its central driving position, and only 106 were ever made, and they've become collector's items. The last one was sold at auction and went for $19.8 million. The final business at McLaren is called McLaren Applied. These guys started out doing unique projects, such as working with Specialized to create extremely light bikes, but now they're more focused on software and big data. They work really closely with racing and with automotive to help improve both businesses. Part of the business I work for is McLaren Automotive, so I'll go into more detail about that now. So normally at this point, to introduce you all to McLaren Automotive, I'd try and play some videos, but unfortunately I don't think that's going to work today. I have had to go for some pictures instead though. So on the left is the McLaren Speedtail. You've got the interior at the top and the exterior at the bottom. This is a successor to the McLaren F1, and it also features the central driving position, cameras that come out of the doors for the wing mirrors. There's no wing mirrors, there's just these cameras, and it goes 200 miles an hour. It's worth £2 million before you've even chosen the colour, and only 106 were made, as with the McLaren F1. They were all bought and paid for before any one of them was put into the production centre. On the top right, we've got the 765 LT, and the bottom left is the 600 LT. These are 2 of McLaren's fastest and most popular road legal but track focused cars, and they both breathe fire. So I'm what's known as a senior project engineer at McLaren, and as a project engineer you get to see the entire life cycle of a project. So every McLaren car starts as an idea on a piece of paper. The directors sit down and discuss exactly what they want to create from the gaps in the market and what else is out there at the time. A team called the studio team, who are concept designers, create drawings and digital images of what they think the car could and should look like. Eventually, this comes to people like myself and the design engineers. It's then our job to actually make this dream a reality. We work extremely closely with all our suppliers to ensure that the parts are actually manufacturable and what has been designed can be made. A lot of the time we're testing new technologies to try and push the boundaries. The biggest driver to improve performance is a reduction in weight. McLaren cars are very powerful, so the lighter we can make them, the faster, more efficient and more fun they will be. This is also now extremely important with the advent of hybrid cars. The batteries in cars now are extremely heavy, so the lighter we can make the rest of the car to compensate for that, the better it will be. One of the biggest parts of being a project engineer is problem solving. Unfortunately, despite our best efforts, sometimes things go wrong, and if it can go wrong, it will go wrong. This might not always be because of something we've done, but sometimes the supplier might have had an issue, but it's always up to the engineers in McLaren to lead the charge and solve any issues that come up. So I just wanted to list some of the benefits that I find and some of the challenges of working at McLaren. It's an amazing place to work, but there's hard times and good times, as with everything. It's definitely exciting work. There's no 2 days that are ever really the same. The teams there are awesome as well. Specifically, the team I work in is one of the best teams I've ever been a part of in my career. It's a challenging environment, and this is definitely a benefit because it allows you to test yourself and develop as a person. There's also plenty of opportunities within the business. You can move around in the business and try different roles. There's also opportunities to travel to suppliers in different countries, and even to go to one of our places in Spain and sometimes get driven around in the cars, which is awesome. Some of the more challenging aspects of the intensity. McLaren is a very fast-paced environment that can be tough at times, and we pull projects together really quickly and have quite tight timelines to get things out. In the comfort zone, we're rarely in our comfort zone trying to push the boundaries of what is possible, but these two things can also be seen as some of the benefits to develop as a person and for your career. So McLaren are well known for their use of composites. They were the first racing team to bring composites into their Formula One vehicles, and it actually led to them winning many world championships. This then filtered down into the automotive business when they started that. Composites are extremely important. Most manufacturers tend to stick to metal components. These can be faster to manufacture and are often cheaper. However, in the case for McLaren, we're trying to make the fastest, lightest cars, and we're also less restricted by the financial side of things. The finances are still an extremely important consideration though, because there's lesser component costs, the more profit we can make for these cars. For those of you who are unaware or haven't heard of composites before, they are extremely special because they can perform at the same level or even better as an equivalent metal component, but they're much lighter than the same component. For example, one of our vehicles has a windscreen surround where the glass sits that weighs 21.9 kilograms when made from metal. The next car we made, we chose to use a composite material, and this ended up weighing a total of 6.57 kilos. That's around a third of the weight. Okay, so I'll talk a bit more broadly about all the career options at McLaren now. I truly believe there is a job for everyone at McLaren Automotive, whatever your passion is. There's many departments and a vast range of people from different backgrounds, but some of the main departments there are engineering, purchasing, marketing, IT, concept, the operators and mechanics that build the vehicles, and ultimately the test drivers as well. So I'm part of the engineering community, and I'm from the product development team who design and then do prototypes for the initial vehicles. There's also quality engineers who work in the production centre to make sure everything is built to the highest standard and that no customer is dissatisfied with the product. There are also supplier quality engineers who often visit suppliers and make sure that they are making the parts to the highest quality at their end so that nothing that is unsuitable comes through to the business. The purchasing team work closely with the suppliers initially to negotiate the part costs and then ensuring our budget is achieved and adhered to. They also manage costs when we need to make changes if a mistake happens. The marketing team's main function is to make sure that future products have a place in the market and also ensure that the current products are highly visible and enticing to our customers. We have a very unique customer base and it's important to keep them engaged. IT covers everything at McLaren, but there's obviously the general IT roles as well as plenty of software engineers for the software in the vehicles, to software that we use, design engineers and concept designers. The concept team is also widely includes some artists and people who even make clay models of the McLarens that we're about to make, and they go from the design of the initial concept to how it should look and present a number of options to the business. One is then selected and a full-scale clay model is made to show the directors before it goes into production. All McLaren cars are hand assembled by a team of skilled operators at MPC. There's an army of them that work all day to get these cars out, and at our peak we get 22 cars out of the door every single day. And possibly one of the most exciting but difficult jobs to get is the team of professional test drivers. The chief test driver is called Kenny Brack, and if you're interested in test driving, I definitely suggest Googling him. So how to get into McLaren? There are a number of different routes, and ultimately it will depend on the end goal of what you want, but there's no one journey that suits all, and everyone will have their own journey into these things and into their own careers. Generally, engineers will have an undergraduate degree, although not all of them would have a degree in engineering. So myself, I had sports science and materials technology, as I discussed. And then some of the engineers have done postgraduate study to be more specialised, but it's definitely not a prerequisite. There are other people who have started as operators straight from school and have worked all their way up over the years and have ended up in senior management. In my personal case, again, I didn't directly apply for a specific job. I was leaving WMG and a colleague there knew someone at McLaren. They forwarded my CV on, ended up in the team I'm working with now, and I was lucky enough to get an interview and was then ultimately offered the role. For those of you that are interested in McLaren, the careers website is constantly kept up to date with all the roles and requirements for the three businesses. So there's automotive, racing and applied, just remember, when you look at these, any job description is a list of absolute wants. It's not, you don't need to have every single thing. A lot of the time what companies are looking for is personality, a willingness to learn, and a good team player. So a lot of the time they can teach you what you need to know, assuming you have a background in it. So just some thoughts to leave you with. Ultimately, one of McLaren's behaviours and one of their mottos is just enjoy what you do. Your career is going to be your future, and you want to enjoy every single bit of that. It's okay if you don't know what you want to do right now. Sometimes I feel like I don't know what to do, and I've been working for 5 years and had 9 years at university. You'll find your journey and you'll find your calling, and you'll love it. Again, the only person that really needs to believe in you is you. You have the dream, you have the passion, you're in charge of that, and you can control that. And if people say that you can't achieve your dream, then prove them wrong. Go out there and find it. It may take a while, but you'll get there eventually. It's also okay to start on one path and then end up on another. I never thought I'd end up doing engineering or material science. I thought I'd stick with the sports science and go through into that, as I said, with sports psychology. We all end up doing different things. Everyone has a different journey, and try not to compare yourself to others or your friends. You never know where you might end up. So quickly, I've just had some questions here that I'll answer. I'm happy to have questions emailed to me that I'll try and answer as well. So do we offer accommodation for people who live far from the workplace? So we have sites in Surrey, in Woking, which is the main headquarters. We also have a site in the UK in Sheffield, and there's a place called Idiada in Spain where we have a team of people as well. We don't offer accommodation for people who do live far away, but a lot of people travel from all over the country to work for McLaren. And people who work in Sheffield or Idiada, or if we from Woking need to go different places in the world, then we do get expenses, and it's paid for by the business. I'm sure one day there will be an opening for a test driver. I'm not entirely sure what you need to do, but you definitely need to have experience in driving cars and in racing. So a lot of the F1 drivers will start in karting and then work their way up. There were placement graduate opportunities. I think that's been paused at the minute because of the pandemic, but it's certainly something McLaren are keen to do. They definitely have work placements, and there was a graduate scheme. There's definitely something they'll look to implement in the future. And so there's lots of employment opportunities across the business always cropping up. In terms of what's being scoped or in process at the moment, I can't divulge too much information because it's all secret, and we're keeping it hidden from the market. But the things to consider are things like moving into hybrid technology, and McLaren are always pushing the boundaries with the requirement to move towards electric vehicles. Definitely a big push in the whole automotive industry at the minute, and we are announcing a new car at the end of February, so keep your eyes peeled for that. In terms of partnering with industries and collaboration with supporting McLaren, so McLaren don't physically make many of their own parts. The Sheffield team do make one of our most important parts, the tub, which is the basis for the whole vehicle. But most of our other parts are made all over the world, from Peru to Thailand, Italy, plenty of places in Europe. And we do often work with material suppliers to do testing as well and do research. In terms of qualifications, you need to become a Formula One radio manager. I'm not entirely sure on this. I have asked, and I'm going to get a response for you, but some of the skills I can think that you need is definitely communication, great teamwork, obviously passion for the Formula One racing, and the ability to keep calm under pressure as well, I'd imagine. Just like to thank you for listening. I'm sorry it's been a bit strange by doing it recorded, but I hope it's been okay. And if there are any questions, I'm sure your teachers and whatnot can get them to me, and I'll do my best to answer them. And good luck with your future choices in career.